have something for you.
I'm not gonna give you any spoilers. It's just like that's right there in the cover art and everything.
I'm playing with no 20 gig toy.
And then they basically have CS:GO Among Us.
Alrighty, we have a very loosely defined minute to answer these in. It'll probably be 5 minutes. It'll probably be 4.
You had the mistaken luck of picking up Sinbad, the tie-in game to the DreamWorks movie that barely works and can soft lock very easily in the longest level.
Hey everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Quad Damage Podcast. I'm the Midnight Medium, joined by Robert the Yapp.
Hello.
And today we have a very special guest, perhaps the best kept secret in all of games journalism. We have Elijah Beam, the Unabridged Gamer.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. How you doing, Elijah?
I'm doing quite well, and thank you for having me.
Very excited.
Welcome
I wish more
aboard.
people introduce themselves like that. Everybody else is like,
I have been compared to a Wallace and Gromit character sometimes, yes.
well, just as long as you don't forget the cheese, you'll be all right with us.
Yes, cheese is very important, especially if it's grilled.
Or Wensleydale.
Or in a meatball marinara, which I had for dinner tonight.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before we get too far afield, for our viewers and listeners out there, just remember that Elijah's not immune to this. He will be put under the firing range of the rapid fire round, where a guest has 1 minute, roughly, to answer 10 questions that are randomly generated, and there's one trick question in there. So that'll be coming up a little later on. Be on the lookout for that. But before we get into that extremely grueling, I'm sure, segment of the show, let's start things off the right way. And gentlemen,
Let's get
booming. That was really good.
and
That was really
scene.
good. Yes. Yeah.
We have
Cool.
Hellguest in Sector 9.
Hell guest, hell yeah.
Nice. Nice. Sorry, Medium, you were going to say something.
No, you're good. I was just gonna, since Elijah's been shooting us all this cool stuff that he's been into over the years, I'm kind of intrigued to have him unpack that for everybody else. So, yeah, I guess just let the viewers know kind of who you are, what your background is, all the cool stuff that you've been up to. Who is Elijah
Okay,
Beam?
so, yeah, you most likely probably know me from my Escapist days when I ran Second Look and the stuff of Legends, which were respectively a let's give these games a fair shot column and digging into all kinds of weird lore, including the one time that the Escapist Discord community basically encouraged me into trying to unpack the madness that was the Sims lore, which is deeper than you have any idea, and God have mercy on your soul if you try to make sense of it. Like, the whole idea that they're making a movie about it, yeah, sure, I believe it. But if they don't make it about Bella Goth, I'm calling shenanigans. But regardless, besides that, obviously, for like the past, gosh, like almost 7-8 years now, I have also been doing YouTube as the Unabridged Gamer, where I have talked about a wide variety of games. Sometimes the algorithm lets people know that I've made those videos. Sometimes it tries to smother me as hard as it can with a pillow. And I never know quite which ones. I'm still amazed how many people loved that I talked about Yaiba, Ninja Gaiden Z, and Vampire Rain. That's still, to this day, is surreal. But yeah, just like, in general, that's kind of been my whole beat, has been looking at underappreciated games, because I was a very poor kid growing up. My parents were living paycheck to paycheck and everything. And so you made every single game count. You made all of those things last. Like, I still remember when I first finally had a PS3, which was the second console I ever had. The first one was the Wii, the last gift from my late grandfather, may he rest in peace. And with the PS3, there was my first real Black Friday where I actually went out and I got 4 games at once. This was a novel concept for teenage me, to just be like, I can choose. I'm not just gonna, because like, understand, when I usually got one, I made that thing last for like 4 months. So I really learned to appreciate. So did you have the mistaken luck of picking up Sinbad, the tie-in game to the DreamWorks movie that barely works and can soft lock very easily in the longest level? Yeah, I beat it 5 times. So I've learned to really see when a game is truly bad or not, and that's why I'm probably the only person who can say that in 2020 I played Rambo the video game with a PS Move.
Nice.
Oh my! With a PS Move.
Elite company.
Yeah,
Jesus, I watched a video of it earlier today, Rambo the game, because I'm an archer, so I was watching Rambo stuff with his bow, and by God, I haven't seen the footage of that game in God knows how long, and I watched it for like 15 seconds, and I said, "This is a goddamn piece of shit," and I remember why people hated it. It was so janky and stiff.
Was that on
It
rails
is
game?
janky. It is on rails, but
Or
here's
like
the thing:
them,
it's
same
not
thing.
actually that stiff in the gameplay. That's the weird part. Like the animation work is rough. Don't get me wrong, but like
Yeah.
in terms of the gameplay, knowing that it was originally meant to be a Wii game, which is ironic because both of the Wii ports were the ones that were canceled eventually. But since it was originally targeting a Wii, it explains a lot of the poly count and stuff like that they were going for. And the reason they leaned into on rails is because the people behind it are the same developers who made all the heavy Fire games over the years, which are on everything under the sun. There's even a freaking 3DS entry, and that eventually opened the door to them making Terminator Resistance and most recently RoboCop Rogue City. Like they were being very calculating. They knew they were not going to get great sales numbers no matter what. So instead of potentially collapsing their studio, they're like, okay, we'll make this modest thing and then we'll try for something a little bit bigger. So I agree that Rambo the video game should never have been released for the price that it was asked for. Oh my gosh, no. But I also kind of understand what they were trying for. Like, there's some clever ideas with the perks. The active reload system is basically been lifted wholesale for the more recent DICE Battlefront 2. Like, they actually had a modicum of good ideas there, so I can kind of see what they were dreaming of, despite the fact that, oh my gosh, yeah, it is hilarious that the easiest way to level up in that game is to just do the jail breakout QTE, and there are literally levels that are just nothing but a quick time event, and it's astonishing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just like I've seen some really weird stuff. Some stuff that's been really cool. Like Splatterhouse 2010 is actually really weirdly good at its romance subplot. It's just like these things that you don't expect.
What?
Yeah, like even actually another YouTuber who highly recommend the Hidden Object Guru. He recommended that one to me because he's like, yeah, even the naughty pics that the girlfriend tears up so that you can try to find her throughout the levels actually tell the story. Like you follow the arc of their relationship, and it's like, who thought this hard about this random collectible that was just there to make people feel horny? But they did it, and it's just that's what fascinates me. It's a lot more exciting to me to explore that stuff as to explain that like Arthur Morgan makes you feel things in Red Dead Redemption 2. There's enough people explaining that. That is well trodden territory. So it's always really fun to delve into that. Plus, you end up then going into stuff like prototypes and preserving unreleased games and everything, which has also just been an astonishingly humbling experience to document some stuff. I just did a feature for Unwinnable about looking at old versions of Aliens Colonial Marines, which you were talking about in an earlier episode, and how like there is like these small cult followings. And yeah, for what it's worth, Colonial Marines community is really nice. Like I was amazed how polite they were.
Yeah.
But
well, it's a perfect 7 out of 10.
Some
Yeah, it's just the work
is.
that you were doing. This I don't want to use the word restoration. It's not the wrong word. It's the wrong word. But
Preservation?
Hidden Palace, preservation. Yeah, Hidden Palace. Is this is this what you do for them? Because you mentioned that you had a working relationship with Hidden Palace. But
It's all to clarify. Basically, it's a come as you are able to kind of to contribute. But there are very specific ground rules. No builds that are under 10 years old. So you're not going to see anything recent so that they don't potentially invoke anyone. They're very careful about Nintendo stuff because they don't want to get DMCA for that as well.
Yeah,
There's a handful of E3 stuff that they've preserved from that, what have you. And if any like publisher or developer requests to not have it there, they will also not have it there. Like WayForward was like, it's cool that you guys found this stuff, but we don't want it out there. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
But besides that, yeah, it's kind of a volunteer wiki collective archive kind of situation, a bit like actually Archive Online or .org. And yeah, we basically just go through some of the builds and try. Usually, you're loading them up in emulators because getting actual dev kit hardware is extremely expensive. Like the cheapest you'll be looking at is like paying like for a brand new console, and you're getting like an Xbox 360 that can only play these prototypes. But
Yeah.
there's some really cool stuff that's out there. I got to play a pre-alpha build of Dead Space 3, where there were actually a lot more three-way battles between the necromorphs and the humans. That was really cool. I actually legitimately think that the pre-alpha played better. Also, the human enemies were a lot more dangerous, and you felt intimidated. It worked better, in my opinion. I hate
Yeah.
that the people they had, like, as the audience testers were like, nah, I don't like this, because it actually feels more like Dead Space 2 in a lot of the good ways. And sometimes you just find really hilariously fascinating stuff. Like I said, with Colonial Marines, they had to start basically over from scratch with what little Gearbox had made, and as a result, when they were like coding in the Wayland Yutani mercenaries, they're all just winters, but colored different colors like Sarge's army men and everything. And it just and fun fact, we almost had Duke Nukem in Aliens Colonial Marines.
What? How?
He was going to be a cameo because there was this whole big character that got cut that was supposed to be a Weyland Yutani scientist who turned stooge for the Colonial Marines. He was actually the role that Hicks eventually got. He was going to be the inciting incident, being like, "Hey, shit's going down. Come here and check it out." And during the mission where you'd link up with him, and it's in this one early build. At first, there's just this little block with a texture for a Marine following us around as we're going through it. And it's like, okay, this is a placeholder. Then, because the game at this point didn't even have implemented subtitles, so any subtitle appears as like the objectives do in the final game. And at one point, really clear on my screen, it says, "Duke, get the door." And then I turned, and the block that has had nothing else going on this entire time stands in front of the door. There's a welding torch going down it, and suddenly Duke Nukem's head from Duke Nukem Forever is just floating there in front of it. And according to one of the people that I spoke to, I can't say who, they require anonymity, but one of the people who worked on the game was like, yeah, we were not aware of this. That was probably Gearbox doing that because they liked to do things like that. At Timegate, they had a very strict process because, like, Easter eggs and stuff like that is actually very legally nerve-wracking. That's why a lot of studios don't typically do a bunch of them. Because, yeah, no, they would not have done that. But yeah, thankfully, we didn't have that awkwardness. That entire mission, ironically, was one of the many that got cut because Gearbox was like, in the 11th hour, it's like, hey, we got Michael Biehn, so we're going to retcon Hicks being dead and just throw out a quarter of the game.
Yeah, well, you know, I like Duke Nukem, but Michael Biehn is a legend, so you know it's hard to say no to. But when you said Duke Nukem was in it, my initial thought was, you know how they did it in Bulletstorm, where they basically just swapped out another character with him. Were there any voice lines for from Johnson?
No, this is way too early for voice lines. Typically, voice lines are one of the last things you want to do. That was actually part of the problem for Dead Space 2. Actually, was they had changed the ending because one of the head creatives was like, "I think this is too happy," which was a weird thing to say about a horror game's ending, but that's a whole other conversation. Regardless, they had already done so much mocap and everything that there's this dissonance now because originally Nicole was not supposed to betray you. She was not supposed to. People have actually data mined it and found some of the placeholder script for what they were supposed to say, but because mocap and voiceover work cost so damn much that it's just like, you do not want to do it until everything is locked in. And Colonial Marines kept cutting stuff. There's an entire section that's a homage to Honor Rail that was far enough along that they were in the middle of polishing the animations that's in some of the prototype builds that I played that isn't in the game except for like 10 seconds where you see the original scripted crash, but you're not in it. You just see it happen off in the distance. It is wild how late some things actually get put into the game.
Yeah, and it's still released in a terrible state, and everybody hated it. And what was it? There was one line of code or something that was wrong with it.
Yeah, there's like a parens, for the tether for the AI nav mesh. Yeah, that was very unfortunate. Although the weird thing is, I've actually played one of the console versions, and I did not have the issue on PS3. So I don't know if it's an issue specifically on like 360.
I played on 360 too, and I noted that there were some times when the AI would kind of stop stop for a second and maybe like turn and just sort of not know what to do, and then they go back on mission. But it wasn't like they were. And there was like one glitch where one time they just didn't attack me if I went to the end of a hangar and they were hitting the door that was there. That was about it. But it wasn't like this widespread thing. I'm like, but that patch supposedly only hit PC, so I'm not sure how the console versions managed to dodge that, or at least the ones I played.
It's possible that when they released like Stasis Interrupted and stuff like that, they may have smuggled it in, because usually even when you release DLC and you like still have to download it, some of it still gets patched in for compatibility's sake, so they might have fixed it then. Plus, to also be fair to everyone who was like making the memes very much at the beginning, sometimes these games are just way more broken when the person who is reviewing it is getting it than anything else. I have had
early build,
like I'm trying to remember what it was. The Deck 13 Souls, like the Cyberpunk one where you slash off limbs and stab. Yeah, I was reviewing the Surge too. It didn't work for half the embargo period. We had to release a first impressions instead of an actual thing. I, for over a year afterwards, had people coming to me and being like, well, can't you just update the review now or whatever? It's like, management makes that decision, and I reviewed what was handed at the time, which was a very broken mess. I'm glad it works for you now. Oh, so happy that it's actually working for people now, but like... it was barely functional when I was playing it, like, so many ways.
We mentioned this in the last episode, actually. We had a short conversation about it, and the struggles of being a reviewer and getting earlier copies. That the version that you're reviewing essentially may not be the version that makes it into the wild. So there could be a strong disconnect between what people are watching, if it's YouTube, or reading, if it's a website, your experience of that particular game with their experience, and it could be completely different, and it can affect sales, because of course, what if your review of it is negative, because that's what you're going through, it puts people off from buying it. So I honestly can't think of any particular way around it, unless they kind of the publishers took the game is completed, and let's spend the next month putting it out there so that it's not given to reviewers whilst in the process of being created. You know, the reviewers get the final.
To be fair, to give some insight, because I've also done some consulting on some games, oftentimes they are being patched constantly, even after like it's technically gone gold, it's technically ready to go out. They are still patching and working on it. Basically, there will never not be something that you will need to stop fixing or whatever. Like, I remember having this one glitch where, I can't say which game, but basically, the shotgun, you'd find some ammo for it early, but once you picked it up, all the spare ammo you found was gone. And that's not great. But it would only happen like once or twice, so by comparison to... if you turn the camera this way and walk against the wall, you will fall into a void. That was a bigger priority kind of glitch for that person, for that developer to handle, as opposed to fixing the shotgun glitch, which got fixed later in another patch. And so it's always triage. So that is a very big factor there. I do agree that like publishers need to absolutely give more time, and sometimes can be hostile about how they handle review clones going out. Like, most recently, Star Wars Outlaws. I didn't get sent a press copy, I just opted for Ubisoft Plus. But I heard from people who did review it, they were given like 4 days. And I can believe that, because can you guess how long I was given for The Witcher 3, a game that can take some people an entire year to beat? 2 weeks! I was expected to complete the entirety of Witcher 3 in 2 weeks!
Well, you know, you could always invent a few more hours in the day, I guess. That's what they see. I think they probably think that you're going to drop everything that you've got and you'll concentrate on their game, and that they don't understand that maybe you've got kids you got to take out, friends you got to visit, you've got a life, you know, outside of your career. With something like The Witcher, I can't imagine how much you actually got through in terms of doing it, but I'm sure you probably just scratched the surface on what's there.
Yeah, it's actually hard for me to go back to a game when I have to churn through it like that. It's really hard. It's why I can't really replay Alien Isolation, because I mainlined that in 4 days, and like, it's not a bad game. I do have some critiques of it, but it's not bad. But replaying it is just like, nope, I just go right back to that emotional state. So yeah, it's definitely, in the scale of issues that the industry has, it's not the biggest thing to fix, but it is definitely something that, like, if we want to improve the discourse around a game at launch, it's crucial.
Yeah, yeah. Medium put out a great video on Alien Isolation as well. Yeah. It's, speaking about Dead Space and horror games, so I'm sure those people who are watching right now have noticed that there will be F.E.A.R footage running in the background because this is the game that you chose, or one of the options that you chose. So take us through the what is it about F.E.A.R that kind of makes you think that you wanted to play that, because that was one of the two games mentioned, Dead Space and F.E.A.R. I'm one of the few people that thinks that although the second game isn't as good as the first, it is still a great game. But I understand why everyone loves the first game, because you leave it with a very special feeling of like, I've played something special right now. What is it about F.E.A.R that speaks to you, is what I'm saying.
It's funny that you mention F.E.A.R 2, because I'm actually cited on Wikipedia for like a paragraph for ripping it to shreds back in 2021. That was one of my most storied columns for Second Look, where
Yeah.
I called it Monolith's worst game they've ever made, actually.
Oh right, okay. Then I want to.
But
Oh, The Chosen, yes, The Chosen. I do want to say I'm only halfway through the game, so I don't know if like the second half is worse than the first half. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it because I went into it knowing it wasn't going to be as good as the first one. So I'm just enjoying it as, you know, as an action game basically. When you compare it to the first, yes, it's obviously orders of magnitude not as good. I haven't played F.E.A.R 3, but yeah,
Crucial
you're going to
question.
say, yeah.
Crucial question. Have you played the expansions?
I'm doing the Monolith one. So I beat F.E.A.R, I think at the end of about 2 weeks ago, I finished F.E.A.R 1, working my way through F.E.A.R 2, and I'll do F.E.A.R 3 afterwards.
He's talking
Do you
about
want
the
to play the
Perseus
expansions?
mandate and the
I
other one.
I know this is what everyone says. They said said play F.E.A.R 1, then play the two expansions, and if you feel like it, play F.E.A.R 2. Everything else is kind of, well, not
Oh,
Perseus,
no,
man.
no, 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 no. Play
No,
the
no.
expansions and then go to 3.
All right, okay.
Like, I am a huge F.E.A.R 3 stan. Literally, before we started recording this, I was playing it to get in the right headspace, because understand, 90% of the hate that F.E.A.R 3 gets is pretty much a matter of fact that, like, they streamlined a few things, they added in a first-person cover system, and it really is a game meant to be played in co-op if you have the option. But as you know, on the scale of what actually kind of gets what the core of F.E.A.R is, F.E.A.R 3 is going to be a lot closer to what you experienced in the first one. Like, for one, Point Man comes back, and
I know,
you
and
can
he
also
looks like
play
he's
as
eating
Fettel.
lead. Yeah.
I'm not gonna give you any spoilers. It's just like that's right there in the cover art and everything. It's like you can play as either of the brothers, and there's some really cool ways that they have interplay and everything. But also, it's just really well done stages. Like, there is a supermarket section that has some of the best visual design I think I've seen in some horror titles. The weapons on offer are really solid. Possessing people as Fettel. You can possess a mini boss as Fettel. Like, that is wild. And it also has some outstanding 4-player multiplayer modes. Like, you have Contractions, which is like Call of Duty Zombies, but it works in bits of Silent Hill. Alma stalks around and can screw with you. She can blind you, she can teleport you across the map. There's this seeping cloud cover that gets higher and higher every single wave, and you have to scavenge for supplies. You can't just buy off a wall. You have to go out there, hold a crate, hurriedly carry it along, only being able to give a shove while carrying it. And there are ghosts that will attack you that you can't kill. You see their spectral presence on the ground. There's
Yeah.
another mode called Effing Run, where it's basically, yeah, play 3 unique 4-player versions of, single player levels, and there's a wall of dead spirits that will just consume you, and if anyone falls behind, you're done. So the more players you have, it's easier to fight, but you also have more ways for things to go wrong, because if you get knocked down, you basically have ruined it. And then they basically have CSGO Among Us with Soul Survivor, where you have up to, 4 people. One of you gets randomly turned into a demon that has to hunt down your former teammates and convert each one that you knock down into another demon. So it escalatingly gets harder and harder for the humans to survive as more and more demons are converted. And then finally, they're like, you know what? We're going to round this out with Demon Mario Kart, where everyone's a demon. You're fighting NPCs in like this free-for-all deathmatch, and you can possess them, and you can kill your friends to steal their points to get the crown. It's just like the amount of creativity in the scale of a multiplayer horror game is just, it's so damn good that it's like, yes, it's not atmospheric. It doesn't have all of the things that like made Fear 1 distinctly what it is, but to call it bad is to just, it's mean. Taking it for what it is, it does a lot better, and it's definitely a lot less tasteless than Fear 2's ending, which I won't spoil for you, but brace yourself.
Yeah, well, I know all about the endings to the games, so I know what it is that you're referring to. So basically, what you're saying is enjoy it on its own turn. It's like a Doom 3 or a Quake 4 situation, and that if you
Yes.
compare it to the other games, it's perhaps not going to be as iconic, but they're still good games on their own and should be enjoyed.
Oh
for
yeah,
what they are,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, it's similar
Alright,
to
then.
Condemned 2 Bloodshot too. Same
Yeah,
basic
very much
company.
so. And
I mean, not nearly as atmospheric in a lot of ways than the first one, although it does have certain dips, or I guess not dips, but like really big high points, like the cabin. But like I've never quite understood. Like, there's so much schlock in the 2000s, the aughts to the kind of the mid 2010s to 2015s, and some of that you just have to enjoy as being not just like the time it came out, but like later, and look back and not just be like, oh, like what a time.
Oh,
All
yeah.
we were torture porn and cheesy filters on our horror games and stuff. It's like, have y'all enjoyed anything before? Like, we're playing video games and wherever you're like, oh, it's not The Last of Us, and then
Oh my God.
dropping our
No,
cigarette with the filter in it.
But to really quickly finish up answering your question, Fear 1 is actually one of my gateway games to Fear. Dead Space and Fear I played back to back because this was back in the days before Steam Family Share, and I had one friend who was a lot richer than the rest of us because, like I said, grew up very poor, and he was like, okay, everybody can use my Steam account at different times, just don't, be a dick to one another. So that is how I first got to experience horror games as a thing, and I think they're two of the best ones I could have possibly started off with, because
yeah.
both, they kind of bridge that gap between me, who played things like Halo and Star Wars Battlefront and Republic Commando, and me, who really likes, atmospheric horror and horror where you can fight back, but the threat is still so immense that it feels like, yeah, you've got a shotgun, but you've got this little girl who can flay people alive with her mind, so good luck.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
God.
most accurate way you can like action horror. I've never understood like the looking down on that genre. I'm like, I still don't feel particularly powerful. I look cooler while I get murked from time to time. Like, this is the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
But they're two of the most interesting genres, because action and horror, because they elicit a very emotional response from you. It's not like a puzzle game where you have to use your brain, but it's the pacing of it is something that's not exactly going to get your heartbeat up. Horror and action are literally there to get the blood running and stuff. And if you put them together, then it is a perfect combination. There are very few games that do genuinely get it right. I'm not a fan of, perhaps old school is not the word to say it, but I love games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill for their story, their lore, their artistic design and stuff. But when I physically play it, it's not something that I find scary or whatnot. Something like F.E.A.R, though, or Doom 3, and Doom 3 is up there amongst like my favorite games. It doesn't matter whether you think it's a great Doom game or not. I just think that it's an exceptional game on its own. To me, those are like the perfect meshing of genres, and it's difficult to come across something. There's nothing off the top of my head, perhaps other than Dusk, where I can say there's been a great action horror game recently.
Yeah, like there was I'm blanking on its name, but there was an attempt to make like a Fear homage, and like in the opening you fight like this very Hellraiser looking equivalent of the Mothman coming at you and everything, but
Trepang,
it actually what?
Trepang 2.
Yeah,
Trepang 2.
Trepang 2,
That
which I love the
amazing game.
demo. But yeah,
Amazing
it
game.
just it just didn't quite scratch the same itch. It actually felt a little bit more like
Ah,
Starbreeze's Syndicate from 2012, which, for
yeah,
what it's worth, another good game to emulate, but just like not quite what I was hoping for there. But there
yeah.
is another action horror kind of in the works. There's I think it's like called Relictula or something like that, or Replica, something along those lines. It's a homage to Alien Resurrection for the PlayStation 1, which, for what it's worth, actually,
What?
you've not heard of
It,
Alien Resurrection for the PS1.
I have. I just wasn't aware that it was a thing that was worth homaging.
Oh, it is. Oh my gosh. It's actually probably one of my favorite PS1 games to still play to this day. It plays way better than it has any right.
Better than Die
I
Hard Trilogy? Because that's a PlayStation 1 game.
I have not gotten to try that one yet. I have not gotten to try that one, but I'm saying genuinely having the main thing, and this is something that has always driven me crazy. Like one of the things I love is like that you guys had Sevi on, and I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of his stuff. I really, really love it. The scratches video, superb. But
Yeah.
the problem that he was facing in his Alien Resurrection video is because he was emulating it overclocked. It's Argonaut were so precise with the code that if you run it too fast, it screws with AI behavior and stuff like that and makes it actually actively harder than it's supposed to be. Like, it's a challenging game no matter what, but like you have to be very careful when emulating it. There's even like a loading transition that can have an issue when emulating. Even if I put in like my PS3 or my PS2, it could still actually potentially have an issue because it's essentially balanced on a pin to get it running as smoothly as it does on an original PlayStation 1. But yeah, no, it's actually really good action horror. If you like Doom 3, you will love Alien Resurrection.
Okay. Which PlayStation 3 have you got? Tell me it's a 60 gig.
I have the
I'm
Slim.
playing with no 20 gig toy.
No, it's the Slim. I need to finally see about homebrewing it. I actually put in a terabyte drive. That took. Fun fact: if you actually put in a terabyte drive and have enough to fill it off of the old PlayStation Network, it takes a week for it to download. I know this because I literally just left it running for a week straight, and it just took it that long to fill 1 terabyte. That's how slow PSN was back in the day, kids.
Pretty
Oh
bad.
my god, yeah. That was my first grown-up console, the PlayStation 3. I was going to say this earlier on when you were talking about what's it called, the Colonial Marines running better on 360, because traditionally it's PlayStation 3 that was the harder one to develop for. And that's the one that was kind of suboptimal, everyone loved the 360. But I got the 60 gig one. I got the 60 gig not even because it was a gaming machine, but because it was the cheapest Blu-ray player on the market at the time. And I just bought it because of that. I was a big film buff then. But speaking medium, I know that I keep talking a lot, so please feel free to cut me off anytime that you want. But I wanted to ask in regards to films, you mentioned something about a very rare Star Wars cabinet. What's the story behind that?
Okay, so there is this arcade out in the cornfields, like we're talking Children of Corn level of cornfields, level of just isolated village in Minnesota that happens to have one of the rarest, actually pretty much the rarest Star Wars arcade cabinet we know of, according to the Preservationist Society for Arcade Cabinets, which if they're not a part of their stuff, more power to them. But there are only 10 of these things known to still be in existence. One's in pieces. It is based on Secret Levels Star Wars Starfighter, which you can play on PC to this day, and it also had a sequel that you can play on PlayStation and Xbox, Jedi Starfighter. The arcade version was the last production ever by this little arcade cabinet company that for some reason tried to specialize in adapting home console games to arcade cabinets. They did Crimson Skies, which is what this one was mostly based on. They did a couple other ones here or there, and this was their last one. It took ages for it to get out. It's fully modeled like an N1 Starfighter, like a baby-sized one, but still, it actually moves and everything as you move around. It has the full HOTAS controls, even though it's on rails, and it actually uses beta content from Starfighter. There's an earlier version of one of the levels. Some of its old geometry gets used, where apparently the grassy plain stage was going to have like this really tall city as opposed to the small bunkers and everything you see in the final thing. And we find out that yes, droid lander ships were supposed to be destructible. There's a whole voice line because everything is recycled. There's no unique content made for this arcade cabinet. and you actually get to hear voice lines that were cut from the home console version referring to destroying the lander ships and everything, because you can hit them with as many bombs as you want. It does not matter. They will just keep shrugging it off. But in the arcade cabinet, you can blow it up, and it is a coin guzzler. It is one of the most masochistic games you will ever play in your life. The good news is they do want to actually try to preserve their copy. Like the family who runs the arcade, they do it for at-risk kids. They try to give the kids in the local area a place to go so the kids can just be kids, don't have to grow up too quick, because they saw a tragedy happen in the community and they're like, no, we need to let our kids actually be able to just enjoy their youth and innocence. So that's what they do. They've set up a MAME machine with all kinds of emulators. Like you can do N64, PSP, and what have you, and it's like a quarter for like over an hour's time on there. They actually have a charity donation thing where you can also just give money. So if a kid doesn't have quarters, they can just play for free. They have an old analog one that's like completely just like physical stuff. It's like a catapult game. It looks like it's from like the 80s. They have a temple run thing that's basically pristine. They're trying to do tabletop and Street Fighter tournaments too. It's like all kinds of cool stuff. And this is on top of like the wife is basically, you know, head of the town council. The dad leads a business innovation center. Like they're just these really incredible people. The oldest son helps restore the machines and everything. Like he's just an absolute gearhead when it comes to this stuff. So really heartening stuff to see. And they just happen to have this piece of history. And the insane thing is they almost sold it for way less than it was worth. Like that's how I found out about it. I was having insomnia one night just looking through Facebook Marketplace and I'm like, that can't be that, because understand, Wikipedia, the Wikipedia for Star Wars, is so detailed that they even have a page for they even have a page for explaining the role of breasts in Star Wars. Yes, I'm not kidding. This was actually a contentious page that people debated about and everything as to whether or not it should be there. And they did not have anything on this cabinet. It is one of the most obscure pieces of Star Wars media in existence. They were going to sell it for like $5,000. This thing is worth way more than that. And now they are determined to keep it around, keep it in pristine shape. And the awesome thing is, after doing the story for Game Informer on them, I'm told that they've actually started getting like more funds and investments because they're doing stuff for the community. So it's just like a really good win for everybody here, because just getting to actually preserve footage of it. Obviously, I couldn't do direct capture, so my dad was holding his phone over my shoulder the whole time, trying to get it and everything. But it is incredible to know that this actually does still exist, because everyone I talked to who even knew about it was like, oh yeah, I saw that in an arcade like 2 decades ago and never got a chance to play it, because just it's almost Polybius levels of, I know it exists, but where is it? And I found it, and it was so cool and wonderful. As soon as I was sure.
Game Informer, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. So did someone just call you up and say, you know, can you go find this thing for us?
Oh, no. I found it. I did all the original reporting, and I just pitched it to Blake Hester, who was still there at the time, and he was like, oh, I'm going to bat for this. This is just too unique a story. We need to have this. And actually, the Colonial Marine story would have been the next piece for Game Informer if GameStop hadn't decided to implode the entire magazine. But such is life. I'm still really grateful that Unwinnable was able to help make that happen. And actually, my editor at Game Informer, Kyle Hilliard, was even like specifically thanked, because he was like, "Oh yeah, you guys go ahead. I want it to actually be read by someone." So, yeah.
Nice.
Well,
speaking of other weird scoops like that, I hear some scuttlebutt of something to do with Yahtzee and Left Alive. Is it something that can be aired?
So yes, I a couple times got to hang with Yahtzee. He actually invited me on when he was doing Ghost Runner. I got to hang with him and Vi. Vi's his buddy for tabletop stuff. Also worth checking out. Really fun creator. Does live actual plays all the time. Currently Prohibition D&D stuff. But all three of us were hanging out then, and Yachts had never played Blood Rain, which is one of my favorite like messy games. It's janky as all get out, but it's a really fun game. I really appreciate the remaster. And he's like, what's Blood Rain like? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like if you combined, you know, Half-Life, Hitman, and Wet. And he's like, I did not like Wet, so I'm just going to take your word for it. And then, as if that wasn't scarring enough for him, I didn't realize at the time that he had planned to make Left Alive like one of his top 5 worst games of the year. And then when we were on a stream for Among Us, and we were, just in between there, I was like, I had written a post that basically was like, Left Alive is what The Last of Us Part 2 wishes it was. And he on the stream was like, so he's like, so what do you think The Last of Us was trying to do? And I explained it, and he was kind of like, okay, I could kind of see that, but just, yeah, it's Left Alive is definitely another one. I mean, I actually have the mech from the collector's edition right there, which for the record is really cool. It's like really well done. But Square Enix had one of their stupid, super low sales, so it was like, yeah, I'll pay $10 for the collector's edition that you try to get $250 for. And but yeah, no, it's another one that's like really cool. I would describe it as Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes scale levels, but with the biting edge of pathologic. It is not for everyone, but it also has some elements from like Dead Rising worked in there with like saving survivors and all of that. There's mech sections that feel like you're in Front Mission Evolved. Like there's some good meaty stuff there, but oh my gosh, play it on like one of the lowest difficulty settings. It will kick your teeth in otherwise. I know a friend who he's like, I play every game on the hardest difficulty from the start. I can do it. And I remember being on stream when he's like, I can't do this anymore. Fine, I'm turning it down. All right, Elijah, you were right. He managed to get further than I thought possible. He got to like chapter 10 of 15 or something like that, but like he had no ammo left. He was basically beating people off of a shovel trying to survive through armed encampments.
What is the best scoop you've ever received? What's the best scoop you ever found?
Oh gosh. Well, to be fair, the Starfire Arcade was a pretty good one. Finally getting my hands on Battlefront 3's pre-alpha and being able to play it, that was neat. Fair warning, I know everyone likes to mythologize it like it would have been the best game ever. It likely would have been a 7 out of 10 kind of game. It really would have. The story was bonkers nuts, and not in a good way. Very much in my first fanfic, I am 12. I have written in protagonist X1 and X2, they're Jedi clones, and stuff like that. That was very surreal. Trying to think about other ones. It was really cool back when I was still in high school, and I actually managed to interview the composer for the Gothic games. That was the first time I ever interviewed anyone fresh out of the gate. That felt pretty incredible. Other ones that it still kind of amazes me. One that there's probably one of my favorites is one that makes me sad too, because the game does not actually exist anymore. It does. I don't know what happened. The developers vanished, but they were making this basically Aquanox meets Homeworld sort of game, and I really got to have a lot of fun because me and another YouTuber at the time got to play a pre-alpha build with the developers, and like got to try out the horde mode that they were using for testing, but they were like, actually this is fun enough, it might go in the game, and also a little bit of PvP, but the game itself has it's just vaporware at this point. I might have an old build still on my PC, but I'm not sure. That was a wild and surreal one. Probably the funniest one though was so as is well established for anyone who has actually heard of my channel, I'm a bit into Star Wars. And I happened to track down the people behind not the HD version, but from Chrome Studios, who made what is arguably, like, in most objective qualities, the best version of The Force Unleashed. And not only was it just fantastic talking to them, they actually tried to pitch flight sections, by the way. That was in their original pitch. Like, it was very bare bones, but LucasArts was like, yeah, but no. But, like, I caused a glitch that was so rare, and I got to tell them about it during that. And I know that's not like quite the usual scope. It's not like reporting it to the world over, but they loved how insane it was because I found out a development secret. So in the Chrome Studios version, every cutscene is in-engine because that saves a lot of time as opposed to pre-rendering and doing... Because like before we recorded, we were talking about how long rendering times can take, and that's especially the case for like if you're making a game. So, as a result of it always being an engine, that means every cutscene is a level. And there is secretly, in every cutscene, a little star killer hidden somewhere off screen that is in the level. And it's particularly funny for the final cutscene, which is where somehow me replaying in New Game Plus enough times and swinging my Wiimote at just the right moment caused a glitch where the camera snapped back to being playable, and I found out that where Juno and Coda are talking at the very end of the game, and he's like, but there was one bright spot still inside him that gave him hope. And she's like, what was that? You. And there's this dramatic music playing as it pans up. Yeah, Starkiller's actually standing down below them on the floor of Kashyyyk. He's just standing there, and now on that old ass Wii, if I load up that save file, every time I get to the credits, it makes me playable. You can hear the sound effects of Starkiller just flailing around. The credits go over it. You can't see anything else. And I talked to the developers about this, and they're like, yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to push a build patch for this. And I also love what the other, I think it was Steve who said it was like, great shot, kid, 1 in a million.
That must have been very exciting. As a Star Wars fan, finding something like that, it's everybody wants to meet Luke Skywalker or something, but you're the guy that found something that no other fan had ever found before. That's something special to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah.
So why don't we move on to one of our segments then? The aforementioned rapid fire round that Medium warned you about in the beginning. Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Medium, do you want to do it, or do you want me to do it?
Let's let it rip. Alrighty. We have a very loosely defined minute to answer these in. It'll probably be 5 minutes. It'll probably be 4.
Loosely.
Don't worry about it. It's we tighten the reins so we can loosen them up at our leisure. All right. So 10 questions. Supposedly one of them's a trick, but we'll see. Maybe the trick is that there is no trick.
What?
You got Wang.
Question numero uno. What's something you wish you'd figured out sooner?
Something that I wish that I had figured out sooner. I really, really wish I had figured out that as fun as it can be to rip a game to shreds, it just takes so much out of you that, like, only do that every now and then. Focus on the positive. It will nourish you a lot more.
Nice. Be nice to F.E.A.R. too. It'll make you feel better.
Let's not get crazy now.
Hey, we're already liking F.E.A.R. 3 more than that, so we're already on the crazy train. Would you rather be stuck on a broken ski lift or a broken elevator?
An elevator, because you can get out of the top there and, like, find some things like a ladder. You're on this broken ski lift. Nope.
Out of luck. All right. What have you created that you are most proud of?
I'm really, really proud of, most recently, some of the features that I've gotten to do for Unwinnable. It's been really rewarding work. Though there's been a couple others that I've gotten to do that I'm also really proud of. I got to talk to the last Wii U developer who ever got to make anything. The guy behind the Silver Falls series, which is like the Nintendo indie equivalent of Silent Hill at this point. Except instead of ghosts, it's UFOs and mutant monsters caused by those darn aliens. He actually worked out a deal with Nintendo to have like exclusive thing in, and also getting to interview the lead guy behind Lost Planet 3 and him actually recording in character a little message to my dad because it was in the middle of the pandemic, and he knew that I mentioned that my dad also liked it, so he's like, I'm just gonna say something real quick here, to give him a courtesy. So he's like, hey, Elijah's dad's name, you're gonna be okay. Just hang in there, Jim Payton.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Very nice. All right, what's one place you've traveled to that you never want to go back to?
I think I'm good far as ever going to Florida ever again.
Right. I don't get the appeal.
I'm in the UK, so I just don't understand what it's all about anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't like it right now. Let's just put it that way. And that kind of happens a lot. No. This is a weird one. What makes you weep?
The ending to Toy Story 3, the ending to Stargate Universe. Those two immediately come to mind. Oh, the ending to the comic book Shudder. That will always just bring me to tears. Even just talking about it with people, if I go too in depth, I will break down in tears because it is probably one of the most perfect, sad, happy endings ever made. Like, seriously, read Shudder. It's really good.
Is it Shudder with 2 T's or 2 D's?
It's 2 T's. You'll know it because the first volume has a woman just surrounded by all kinds of aliens and monsters and anything. It's a very much anything goes kind of setting. Like, I would describe it as like, what if Saga actually had a goal and pacing and didn't make you spend like over 15 volumes to get anywhere. It's nice, a nice compact 5-volume storyline made by some of the loveliest people I've ever spoken to.
All right. Have you ever had a negative experience with a popular celebrity? And you can describe the
Yes.
experience without having to say their name if you prefer.
Basically, I had someone like not famous, but internet famous. Like, it was supposed to be a mentorship kind of thing, but the longer I was around them, the more I realized this is not a good influence, and backed away from that. I won't say who it was, just that like I try to be as polite about it as possible, and just yeah, if someone seems like they're doing anything that just kind of makes you uncomfortable or weird, you don't have to stick around.
Good advice.
Yep. What talent would you show off in a talent show?
Most of my talents take really long and are written or something like that, so I'm not sure. I can make all of my toes move, and like it looks like I'm like stringing them up with my pinky toe. Like, I'm not going to put it on camera because people get weird about feet on the internet. I'm not kink shaming, but I don't need people being weird about mine.
Know. We may blow up.
But yeah, it's just like basically the pinky toe goes this way, the 2 middle toes go back and forth like I'm playing a harmonica. So there you go. That's the best I got.
Oh, okay then. Let me try it on my harmonica.
Oh, don't cock tease us like that. Both of you. Teases. I'm not into it. All right. Do you ever sing when you are alone?
Usually only for therapy, like for therapy reasons, because I have OCD. We're pretty sure that I'm at least lightly on the spectrum, and definitely ADHD. So sometimes music can really help with that. Somatic dancing too can actually help with that a bit, but not really, you know, like chugging along to angry songs. I remember like one time what really helped me through a day was Kings of Leon's Use Somebody. Like that, just it's breathy and gentle enough. But I've been told I could actually get good at singing if I tried, but it's for me it's purely something that like get the brain not doing its job stuff out of my head.
Give it something.
That sounds like every moment of my life.
I feel ya.
All right, getting a little less deep. What's your favorite candy?
Probably right now, I don't have the actual thing itself, but I would really shout out Yum Earth's licorice. They're an allergen-safe brand, and their licorice is outstanding. It's probably been one of my favorite things to have for a while now.
Nice. Young Earth, give them a call, yeah, sponsorship.
Well, guys, you heard it here first. Fear 3 over Fear 2, and licorice has fans. So
yeah,
there's hope for everybody.
When you
no
have
matter who and what
I
you
have
are.
like I have like 3 pages worth of allergies, so like I have to have when someone is making a food that isn't going to try to kill me or send my anxiety skyrocketing, I'm like, yes, okay, let's make this work.
Nice. I can get behind that. Sounds good. All right, last but certainly not least, what fictional place would you most like to go to?
You know, it's funny. This actually weirdly kind of comes back to therapy, because there's this one technique where you walk down a set of stairs, and when you get to the bottom, you open a door and you go to a place. For some reason, when I do that, I end up in KOTOR 2's level in Nar Shaddaa. I don't know why. Nar Shaddaa is a horrible, horrible place to end up. It's like Vegas, but with serrated blades. If Star Wars ever had a Condemned game, it would happen probably in Nar Shaddaa. But for some reason, it just instantly kind of soothes me a bit. Dantooine would also be kind of cool. That would be neat. But yeah, not just that. I really do like the setting. It'd be nice to go to one of the planets when it's not currently in, galactic upheaval.
I would say picking KOTOR 2 levels is going to be a hard bargain anyway. They're all so dark.
Yeah.
But
What's the best Star Wars game? Oh, sorry. First of all, thank you for playing our game with us. So, appreciate it. Yeah.
Nailed
Yeah.
I've actually got something for this. I'm just hoping that it's hold on. Is it still up there? So for a brief time, okay, good. It's still live. Hold on. I'm going to shoot you a link because I came prepared for this way back when I was working at boss level. The editor-in-chief at the time was like, I will pay someone if they will rank every single Star Wars game. And I'm like, are you sure you're ready for this? Because you're
how much money
you're paying me by the word here, and I will find. He's like, all of them, and I'm like, are you sure? Do you want me to do the mobile games? All of them. I'm like, do you want me to do the Jack Pacific plug-in plays? All of them. Up until Jedi Survivor, that was still not out yet. every single game ranked. And yes, the Jack-specific ones are in there. I included behind-the-scenes stories when possible. Yes, I did talk about the Java games because I have a friend from South Africa who's obsessed with Java games. And let me scroll down here to get you the answer from that because it was over 114. I'm told amongst our staff at the time, people tried to see who could speed run this article. The fastest ever was a fellow Star Wars fan. He's like, I was able to speed run it in 45 minutes. That is the fastest. It is over 20,000 words. It
That's
could
a good
technically
payday.
it could be considered as a novella. So the best one is Republic Commando. The other best one is TIE Fighter, and the other best one is KOTOR 2.
You're saying it's not the Star Wars game on the original Nintendo, like 85 or whatnot?
I don't hate myself that much, no.
It's the only Star Wars game I've ever played. I've never played, other than that, I've never played another Star Wars game. So
Well,
maybe I just lost some credit in your eyes or something, but it's just never got one of
Judgment.
those things. Yeah.
Judgment incoming.
No. My main thing is I want to warn you. If you ever play Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, I'm so sorry. I don't know why people recommend it. It has some of the most vicious level design you will ever see. It hates you. The signposting intentionally leads you on red herrings. The Nar Shaddaa level there's like this whole bridge that you're supposed to get across that gets partially blown up, but you can use your force powers to leap across and everything, and there's all sorts of enemies leading this way. No, you're supposed to ignore that, walk along a thin thing while getting shot at by snipers to find a tiny elevator tucked in a corner that's barely lit to go down to a different thing to reach a different thing to get there. Is the only game where I used no clip to figure out where am I actually supposed to go in the level design because I can't find where to go.
Yeah, Outcast
So I'm warning you right
and
now,
the
'cause-
previous one were both like that. They both had, I mean, cavernous levels, like maze-like, but
like-
mazes that were like tall and tall and wide. It wasn't just like this. It was you're gonna need to use your force jump or something. It's really tough to
Yes,
navigate.
like the LucasArts ones, they at least, because I played those after Jedi Outcast actually, and I'd say they were at least fairer about it. Like it's a little bit more Spartan. You can navigate things a little bit more clearly. Jedi Outcast is just like, yeah, good. This is where's Waldo. Good luck. One of the level transitions requires you to intentionally jump into a death pit that in any other circumstance would kill you. It is madness.
Yeah.
So that is just like, that is the one I always warn people against, is like, it will hurt you. There's some really great ones. Actually, since you like Doom 3, Republic Commando, that would probably be a dream one for you.
Okay. My partner played the first one with, I think the character's called Cal Kestis, I think it is. Survivor was the sequel to it. What's that? It's recent.
Fallen Order?
Don't know
Oh,
what it-
yeah, no. I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. We're getting into
Jedi
Elijah
Souls.
Isayed on Wikipedia for not liking this territory again.
She loved it. She couldn't put it down. She was like playing it every day of every opportunity that she got. But it didn't do anything for me. But I think it's the Star Wars game don't resonate with me because the franchise itself doesn't resonate with me. Whereas something like an Alien game or RoboCop, these sorts of things do resonate with me. So I appreciate and enjoy the games based on those franchises.
I wouldn't quite brush off the rest of them because of Fallen Order. I need you to understand that Fallen Order does a lot of things differently than other ones do, actually. And also, Cal Kestis is a plank of wood upon which we're told that emotions are happening. I don't know how you hire the man who played Joker on Gotham and have him give next to no emotion. Like, here's the key thing to also understand is that it was not built to be a Star Wars game. Respawn originally was making it as an original IP. They basically were told, we want you to make a Star Wars game. LucasArts wanted them to make a bounty hunter game, a racing game, all kinds of games, and they're like, no, if we're gonna make a game, it has to be a Jedi game, and they just kind of stapled Jedi stuff on top of what was already supposed to be a completely different experience. So, yeah, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. The story has some problems that still rather deeply trouble me, and yeah, I would not judge the whole space based off of Fallen Order. It's very much its own kind of thing, and it's also part of the new expanded universe, which itself has its own I could literally talk for hours about just how weird they have gotten with the new continuity and everything. It's very odd.
Yeah.
But the old stuff, now it's a lot more, I would say it's indulgent fun, but like there's a nice cohesiveness to it. You hear certain sound effects lay over again and stuff like that. And it's not about specifically being Star Warsy, it's its own like sub-universe of stuff.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah.
actually have to like love the movies to get into
Yeah.
them.
Oh, well, isn't Cal Kestis actually coming to live action now? I'm sure I heard something about that a couple of days ago.
No, I've not heard anything about that. I know there's going to be a third game and it's going to be the finale. I will say that Jedi Survivor is better than Fallen Order, and I do appreciate that it's actually one of the few games to like try to critique The Last of Us always being like the angry dad is justified. It's totally fine for him to kill everyone, whereas Jedi Survivor is like maybe that's not a great message, but
Reel it
it's
back
still very messy.
One second. So, Gaming Bible is saying Star Wars Jedi's Cal Kestis to make live action debut. But it's currently up in the air if the actual actor, of course, who would be the obvious choice doing it. Cal Kestis will finally be making his way into live action in a Disney Plus series. I knew I read something about it a couple of days ago. Yeah.
This is really big. This would be very surprising news for me. I've not heard it anywhere else. So I've not also to be fair, I've not heard of Gaming Bible before. So I'm not
Oh.
sure what their source is there because I try to keep an ear out. Like I love to read morning spoilers from IO9 to see what stuff is coming up, and there's been nothing about Cal Kestis. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can translate him to live action. That's not really the issue. The issue is that like they try to approach depicting PTSD like as if it makes you just stop ever feeling like, human being, whereas when you go through that, it is a lot more like you just kind of alter in your mode as a person. It's like changing your settings, like you're on a different voltage rate to just kind of get through it, and you have to work yourself back out of that and everything. I mean, they do also try to explore some survivor's guilt and stuff with it, but still, it's just I have issues with how he was written and also how they handled stuff on Dathomir and everything. It could have been better. It really could have been better than how it was. Granted, they also could have not made you have to slide down quite so many ice flows with finicky physics.
That's what I remember. I remember her sliding down a lot of levels and Titanfall running across a lot of walls as well.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
But it's respawn. It's respawn. But just kind of bringing things to a close now. One final question to wrap things up. What is the future of Unabridged Gamer? Do you have like a roadmap of sort of things that you want to, a direction that you want to take things, or projects that are currently, without going into spoilers, currently?
I am currently working on some stuff that I have planned for the road ahead there. I do want to I'm finally getting to some stuff that I just always would put off. That I would always be like, nah, am I gonna get to it? Because it actually really hit me you only have so much time to talk about these things. We only have so much energy to give out, and first I said about Starbreeze's Syndicate, one of my favorite first-person shooters of all time. You cannot access 60% of the content now. EA has shut off the co-op servers, even though it's peer-to-peer. Even though it was basically next to no cost to them to have that running, you can't even solo the co-op missions, which was how I'd play them. But it just because I wanted to update, because when I really was early on, I did a video, it was very rough. I wanted to do a new one, and you can only play the single-player campaign. And the single-player is fine, but the co-op missions were just so good, and it's just gone now. So there's a couple of titles that I've really wanted to dig into, that I've really wanted to talk the most about, and those I'll be getting to in the future. And I will actually tell you one of them. The Bureau XCOM Declassified. That is probably one of my favorite games of all time, and I have been itching to get back to it. I did a column on it for Second Look. It was actually the first column I did there, but at the time, I was still trying to figure out the formatting for the column and everything, because it happened very quickly. It just sort of in the middle of writing it as the standalone feature, I was asked, hey, do you want to make this a column? And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I'm in the middle of a car ride, getting a relative halfway across the state, get back and forth, 30 different potential names and everything. So it wasn't produced under the most ideal circumstances. So I want to take another crack at that to really dig into it, because it is one of the smartest games I've actually played in a long time. It has one of my favorite twists. It is wonderful in its aesthetic. It's probably the closest we're going to get to a modern Brothers in Arms game. It actually solves some of the issues like with the Mass Effect games, and just yeah, there's some blemishes because it went through development hell. Polygon's done a really good article about that. I'm not going to worry about retreading those footsteps. I just want to celebrate why it is actually good and why I would really love it if the XCOM fan base could stop having a hate boner for it for just existing. Because
Well, they're
yes,
picking over the
I get
children.
it. Yeah, it's just like I get it. The reveal trailer had it in first person, and a character was holding a shotgun. But even in that stage of development, it was going to have randomly generated levels, survival horror elements. You had to study enemies before you could even kill them. All kinds of really cool stuff, and they kept having to cut it back to make it in scope. And even with how slim it is in the end, yeah, I think that's going to be a really fun one to do. Beyond that, there's something that I can only tease at. It's not official yet for me to, it's not announced yet. I can say that I have a project beyond YouTube that's going to be very exciting and probably the biggest thing I've ever done. Like when you were asking me, what's the thing you're most proud of? It's like, well, I can't say the thing that I'm most proud of because I
You're
have
making it.
yeah. Well, it's made. It's literally just a matter of the other parties involved getting things all lined up and what have you. But if you love sci-fi horror and action horror, keep an eye on things because I'm gonna have something coming out that you will not believe the secrets I was able to uncover, the people I was able to speak to, and I am truly humbled that it is finally so close to finally being announced because I have been sitting on this for the longest time between all kinds of like just all the legal stuff and everything else to be able to dig into it. And yeah, it's very hard for me to compliment myself, but I truly think it's probably the best thing I've done to date. And I'm so excited for people to finally be able to see it.
Well, complimenting yourself is important because it reinforces to yourself that you've done a good job on something, which then spurns you on to the next thing. So yeah, I mean, do it. And as everyone subscribe to so you can catch this
Click the
project
buttons.
coming out. Yeah. Like, subscribe, and when it comes out, share.
Yeah.
Miss a video.
It will be
I
a
was-
real page turner.
Yeah. All right. Well, I can't wait to see it. But I mentioned earlier on that these are some of my favorite genres, so it sounds like it's right up my alley. Thanks everyone for watching this episode of Quad Damage. Joining us today was Elijah of Unabridged Gamer. Elijah, thank you very much again for joining us. How can people find you out on the internet? Where can they look for? Oh, where's he gone? Thank you everyone for joining us for this episode of the Quad Damage podcast. Joining us today has been Elijah from Unabridged Gamer. Elijah, where can the audience find you?
You can find me obviously on Unabridged Gamer at YouTube. You can also find me on Unwinnable. That's where I'm regularly doing a lot of my written stuff. And you can also, check out some stuff that I've done just collaboratively, like obviously here with these lovely people and with the Hidden Object Guru.
I've heard of
Excellent.
that person.
Yeah, we'll have all the links to everything that you just said, then we'll stick it in the description to this video so people can click it and get taken there straight away. Yeah, cool. Medium, where can everyone find you?
Yeah. You can find me at Midnight Medium on Patreon and YouTube, and on Twitter at a Midnight Medium.
Excellent. And I can be found just on Twitter, /X, Elon Musk's cesspit, at Robert Yapp 80. And that's my personal profile, and I'm usually the one, or I should say I am the one that deals with the Quad Damage Twitter as well. So if you want to shitpost me there, you can find me on there as well. Yeah. Excellent. Well, this has been Quad Damage, and keep on booming.
And nice shirt, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.